What's going on, everybody? Today is Tuesday, December 10th, episode 15 of Picks and Parlays, and we have a playoff. SMU loses, still in. Clemson is in. All of our arguments, pretty much, I would say like 75% of all the college football stuff we've talked about has been about the bubble. Turns out, Bama out, Miami out, South Carolina and Ole Miss also out. And one of the subplots here is that you guys have probably the best draw of anybody. So we can just get the Penn State shit out of the way.
Well,
right off the rip.
So I guess before we get into the Penn State shit, are we all in agreement that the 12 teams that actually made the playoff are the correct 12 teams that made the playoff? Would that be a fair thing to say?
Despite how much Joel Klatt bitches and moans on Twitter, I mean, the SEC fans with Bama are talking about, oh, well, then watch us not schedule hard out-of-conference games, but all their losses came to conference teams.
Right.
So
I really do think this is a pipe dream because it's all about money, and that's going to drive every decision that is made, including how the conferences are structured. I really think that we should go for either 20 team or 16 team. I prefer 16, but either 16 or 20 team conferences. If it has to be a fucking super mega conference, sure, it can be 20, and then like section off the teams based on how they did the year before. So you'd have like quad 1, quad 2, like within each conference. And then it's like, okay, if you're going to play 8 conference games, you play 2 from the bottom quarter, 2 from this one, 2 from that. And it at least has some uniformity. I get, teams lose guys. And, if you have like Miami next year without Cam Ward, right? If they don't bring in another great quarterback, they're probably going to be significantly worse, right? But it gives you some kind of reference point that, because Georgia, yeah, they had the 2 losses, but they played the toughest schedule in the country by far, and really no other SEC team even came close to their schedule, I thought.
Yeah, I feel like at least we, in terms of this year, the 12-team playoff is such a leap better than what we had last year. Like last year, we were talking about an undefeated Power 4 conference team missing the playoff because they lost their quarterback. Now, like, sure, if you want to make an argument about these 3-loss SEC schools, and so be it, but we're still at the end of the day arguing over like 3-loss schools versus 2-loss schools, and it's just like so much. The playoff is just so much better. I think that the seeding conversation is a totally different conversation than the teams that made it conversation, which we can get into in a minute. But I was very happy with how it turned out in terms of who made it and who didn't.
Yeah, and I guess Texas has been trending down kind of, but I think that's the clear, maybe not clear best second pool, because you would say that Notre Dame feels good about playing Indiana potentially, but then like Clemson squeaking in, you'd think that Texas would have Clemson and then Arizona State back to back, because Notre Dame would go on to seed Georgia. Like, where would you rather be if you're a fan of Texas or Notre Dame? Would you rather be in that 5 or the 7 spot? Because everybody said the 5 was going to be the most coveted spot, and then Arizona snuck in there at 4. Arizona State.
If I can avoid Georgia or Oregon until the final four, I'm very happy.
Yeah, I actually think 6 is better, because I do think SMU is probably the worst team that made the playoff.
Yeah, I was saying, I guess, after, outside of ours, what the next one was. Because, you would have looked halfway or 3/4 of the way through the season and think that Texas has an incredible pool as well.
Yeah, I think it's definitely 6 and 5. And I think that's just what people are upset about, is not necessarily like, for me, Penn State or Texas making it to the semifinal. Like, so, okay, I know that they're heavy favorites to do that, right? Not trying to jinx you guys or anything, but like, so Texas and Penn State making it to the semifinals, that wouldn't bother me, because I think they are top 4 teams in the country. I think what people are upset about is the fact that Oregon and Georgia, they're going to have to play a Tennessee and Ohio State. I wouldn't care too much about playing Notre Dame, Indiana
I
winner,
think
but
that I
Yeah.
think the conversation. I think like Oregon has a right to be upset about. I mean, like it's just kind of how the system works. Like I don't
Yeah.
I think that the committee was absolutely right to separate these conference championship games from the regular season. And if you weren't playing during the conference championship weekend, you weren't going to fall below. Like, yes, Ohio State beat Penn State in the regular season, but Ohio State in the regular season had two losses. Like, I think that this committee really values those losses. It's the reason why Clemson was still behind SMU after this weekend. Like
yeah, I was
SMU
surprised
had
by
less
that.
losses than Clemson, which whether you argue it's right or wrong, I think at least it's refreshing that we kind of have this in the back of our heads for next year is that barring, I guess, like a crazy injury like the Jordan Travis situation, the wins and losses, you can kind of look at those and that's going to really that's going to really give you a clue as to who they favor over others.
Yeah, that's what's bothered me about all this stuff. And honestly, I've been good. I haven't argued with anybody since since the ranking show. I just this is just how it's how brackets work. And that like this is how the pieces fell into place and these are where everybody ended up at the end of the season. And I guess like the qualm is how they got there and why are they ranked at certain points. But this is just they just got super unlucky. Like that does suck. Oregon's pool is horrible. I and
Well,
it's
I think it's
super
just the
upsetting.
auto buy. People don't like the auto buys
Yeah.
because
Well,
if you didn't give the auto buys for Arizona State and Boise, they would both be behind Ohio State
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Tennessee probably. So you'd
Yeah.
slot those two teams up. So then Oregon all of a sudden skirts all of that. Georgia still probably plays Notre Dame, I think. But like then
Yeah. I mean,
you guys
so
in Texas probably get those like
yeah,
Tennessee,
it's
Ohio
kind of
State
like
games.
now all of a sudden, like those conference championship games really, like the auto buy thing, it kind of means nothing. Like if Penn State and Texas got buys, even though they just lost their conference championship games, people will be equally as upset
Yeah.
as they are now with them getting the 5 or 6 seed. People are going to be upset regardless of how things turn out in college football. I think I'm fine with the auto buy system being in place. I still think like winning your conference should be rewarded in my eyes, at
And then
least.
would they because Notre Dame always fucks everything up. Like I think that there would be an argument if they didn't have the auto buy that I mean, Texas and us were both losers in our championship game, but then it feels like would they have to throw Notre Dame in there with
Yeah.
one of the auto and then it's just
I think hurting teams for losing their conference championship game is a really bad precedent to set because I think that teams would kind of almost like I don't think a team would ever throw a game in college football. I don't see that ever happening in the regular season. But I do think that like I don't know. I could see a lot of teams kind of like trying to have a conversation with a conference saying, "Hey, like we just straight up don't want to play in this game," you know, like
yeah.
because why would we? It's just going to hurt us.
Yeah, I did have a so I agree. This is kind of a circle back a little bit, but Mags, when you were saying about the records mattering and leaving the three lost teams out, and even Miami a 2 loss team getting left out, and so do you think that there's any potential for say this is a bad example because they won their conference, but Georgia, right? So looking at their schedule, like we said, it's like one of the toughest in the country. So they had a 1 point win against Kentucky in a game that looked like they could have lost it. Say they lose that game. What do you think that they could be a team that gets in potentially over a 2 loss team if their losses are Kentucky, who's not a great team, a crazy game against Bama, and then the Ole Miss game, which they kind of got dominated. But then they'd have wins. They'd have 2 touchdown win over Tennessee. They would have, who's a playoff team. They would have beaten Texas handily once, and then again, who's also a playoff team. Clemson, they crushed. Who's a playoff team. Like, is there a way that resume could make up for a 1 loss difference in a record?
I don't think I mean, so I guess in this hypothetical, would you say like Ole Miss is in place of Georgia, like winning the conference or something?
I guess I would just say because there was like all those tiebreakers and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's the thing is like they don't get that second win against Texas. But like say they just missed the conference championship, but they were still had the same record, right? So I just hypothetically say Texas won it. Texas beat like I don't know, Bama or something.
Eric, I mean, I
I,
don't know.
I know you
I
hate
think
hypotheticals, Mags, but it was
I
your.
do.
yeah.
I'm responding to
I'm
your
kind of the
statement.
same.
So
I'm the same way. But then as you're talking about that, I'm thinking of a solution that also is hypothetical and would never never happen. Is just like if because another argument that was, I guess, enlarged this year that has always been a thing people talk about is ranked wins at the time of playing versus finished
oh boy,
rankings.
here we go.
So, think about it. What if, because there's also a question of people scheduling cupcake out of conference games, right? So, like, if you go take the top 50 teams preseason poll and you weight each position as a certain value, and then it would have to change week to week because people would drop and move up. And your wins would be calculated based on the weight of week by week. But I guess that would also be like so the way that it balances out is you get your flowers for beating them at the time that you played them, but then also like you could play a 45th ranked Army team, not a great example this year, but a 45th ranked Army team in the beginning of the season who eventually is, finishes later or up higher in the rankings, and it would be I don't know. I don't know if that's a potential solution because it's not like you're getting the points for that later on. But I just feel like it's always going to be semantics until there's something objective in place.
Yeah, my general take is that the bubble stuff, like, so I would not put in, and I even said, like, I agreed with you, Max. This is the correct 12 teams. I would not have put Bama in over SMU because they're a one-loss team. Like, they lost their
Yeah.
conference championship, but the conference championship, and I also don't like when people say don't punish them for having to play an extra game. It's not just an extra game. It's an extra game against teams at the highest level in your conference. It's not just like, oh, you had to play an extra conference game, which
Yeah.
like the Big Ten already does, right? So I SMU is a one loss team. But yeah, I think Miami is probably the best example of this level, like a 2-loss regular season team that did not make it to their conference championship. Like, are they able to get past? And I think my overall opinion is that the teams like this, the playoff being expanded, it opens the door for a lot of teams that the people who hate the playoffs say, well, teams through 12 aren't even going to win the playoff. Fine. Then I'm fine with being subjective in that range, right? So I think if teams earn it and you're like the number 6 team or whatever, I like this year, right? Like Penn State and Texas probably would have got knocked out of the playoff this past weekend if it was a 4 team, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? Cuz I think they're definitely, I'd say, top 5 teams, like at least one of them, probably both of them should have been in a 14 playoff. But yeah, I think that I'm fine with being subjective, and I also think if you reward a team for a really hard strength of schedule, I get that like 3 losses at some point. I think Eric had a quote in the group message that I loved, which is like
Oh,
if you have 3 losses, like at a certain point you're just a team that loses games.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
A quarter of your season. A quarter of
right,
your season you lost.
but
That's bad.
I do think that if you reward a 3-loss team that has a really strong strength of schedule, I think it does open the door for some of the big teams to schedule harder non-conference. Because now, like the Bama fan argument of they're like, oh, we're just going to schedule cupcakes now. It's irrelevant because, like you said, they won all of their non-conference games and they only lost conference games. But I I think if you say to Alabama, well, actually, if you would have gone and beat Clemson, in your non-conference schedule, then maybe you would have got that bump, right? It's one more significant win, and I don't hate the idea of rewarding that.
Yeah, I think it's hard for people to dissociate from what Alabama was under Saban like 5 years ago because they still played these hard games. They played not like but they just were so much better than everybody that they beat the shit out of all the other really good teams in the country. And it was like in that our high school period, if
Yeah.
you ever heard of them even coming within 10 points, like some other team coming within 10 points of them for a couple of those seasons, it was crazy to think about. So like we still have that, in the back of our minds, and then we see that they actually dropped a couple games, which like you said, it's just they just lost games.
Yeah. I think this is the year that stigma gets, because it was already kind
Yeah.
of starting with Georgia being the class of the SEC, but they could still beat Georgia with Saban.
Yeah.
Now it's like they're not the most talented team anymore, and Saban's gone, and they didn't even make a 12-team playoff. Like,
Yeah, they don't even have to hide that they're giving money to players anymore. So now it's going to even out. It's going to find its balance. So
whether they got chicks sucking off their 17-year-olds.
I think that
that does happen.
I think that this out of conference conversation also like just doesn't apply. Like these top teams like the Bamas, the Georgias, Ohio States, Oregon's, like they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. Like not like it took a crazy circumstance for Alabama to not get into the playoff. They were getting into the playoff if Clemson had not beaten SMU in this hypothetical. Like you drop one game in a big out of conference like scheduled, like say next year if Alabama plays Ohio State. I don't know who their out of conference is, but say they lost that game, like they're still probably going to get the benefit of the doubt. Like most of these top programs are given the benefit of the doubt for a long time. I think the middle tier probably has a better case. The Wisconsins, the Penn States, the Miamis, they probably have a better case to not schedule these big games because their 1-loss or 2-loss resume is going to get compared to a 3-loss Georgia or 3-loss Alabama resume. And they're going to say, well, it's Georgia and Alabama versus, these mid-tier teams. But the out of conference conversation was just mind numbing to me. And I think that they knew it was stupid, but they're stupid people. So they are going to continue saying it. So,
All right, well, yeah, we could talk about the bracket a little more specifically here. Maybe make some picks here. Starting off the 1-8-9 quadrant. So this is Tennessee at Ohio State in Columbus. Winner plays Oregon at the Rose Bowl in the Rose Bowl game. I think Ohio State is the team that I'm most interested to see in the first round after this Michigan loss. I mean, it's even if they win, like there's nothing, like they're still gonna get shit from the Michigan fans. But if they don't get off the Max is so close.
there's something stuck in my thing. I'm sorry.
If Ohio State doesn't get off the mat here, like if they go down like 10-0 in the first two possessions or so, like it's social media is gonna start rocking. Like
I think Ohio State would be in better shape if this game was in Tennessee. I legitimately think their home crowd is the advantage in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I think I agree with Lewis. I think this is, I mean, outside of my own team being in there, I think I'm most excited for this game. Well, one, so the two like schools of thought in my own brain are, it'd be cool if somehow it worked out that we would get a rematch with Ohio State, because I think they can be our kryptonite, but who knows? We've never played them twice in the same season, so hard to beat a team twice. But I also don't think that even if they would get past Tennessee, that I think that they're beaten down. Like I think if they made it on to the next round, I think Oregon might stomp them this time, because I think like what you're saying is they're down on themselves right now. Ryan Day's wondering if he's going to get canned. So he's going to be playing tight butthole, trying to save his job, trying to win a natty. Will Howard is probably trying to shut people up, all the naysayers, because
Let them know.
every single person, all the broadcasters, everybody, all the analysts are saying that Ohio State is potentially the most should be the most talented team in the country. It's just they're drawn back by Will Howard. And I think he's going to try to do too much to prove that he can keep playing, but he's just not good enough to do too much. He's going to start throwing worse picks, although I don't know if I've ever seen one worse than Warren Davis or Davis Warren, whatever his fucking name is, on the goal line. So I think Are
We
we?
need to
Did
figure out
you,
which one it is and start
Yeah, are
consistently
we?
saying the other one.
Davis Warren? Yeah, I don't know which one it
Warren
is.
Davis is a relief pitcher for like the
Yeah.
fucking Buccaneers or something. That sounds
Yeah.
Davis Warren does sound like a 4-star kid from Texas, for sure.
Yeah, it does. I think if we're picking against the spread for this first round?
We
Or
could, yeah, Corey sent some picks, so yeah, we could if you want.
I think I do like what scares me. I think, like you're saying, it's we have to figure out what they do this week. But I think that I might take Tennessee plus 7.5 in this first one. I feel like Ohio State's kind of beaten down, and I'd love to see them just spiral and Ryan Day's stupid fucking face again at the end of a loss. So I think I like
think we lost
Tennessee.
Eric.
Ryan Day
I mean,
got him.
7.5
Ryan
points.
Day
is
got him.
a lot.
We lost you in the middle there.
Yeah,
God
you
damn it.
froze on your stupid fucking face right as you were saying that.
Damn it. I don't know why. Since the hurricane, feel bad for me. I get really horrible Wi-Fi upstairs. So,
Yeah.
but
Um,
I like Tennessee to cover.
I'm going the opposite way. Is it 7.5 or 8.5?
So I see 7.5 on
7.5.
FanDuel.
I don't know why I'm asking. I'm taking Ohio State either way. I feel like, well, taking Ohio State for two reasons. One, I hate them, so if they win, I make money off it, and if I lose, I'm happy that they lost.
This is the
But
most
also,
Mags move that exists in this world.
I bet against the Yankees in the World Series this year.
Yeah.
The other reason why is I think that I'm of the mindset that there's just so much talent on this Ohio State team that 2 weeks of like sitting around, or I guess what it would be 3 weeks of just sitting around and like reading people saying how much they suck. I got to imagine these guys are going to come out with the fire under them. Tennessee, I think, is just, I think they got really fat off bad teams in the SEC, and I don't trust alphabet soup at quarterback for them. So I think in the shoe night game, I'm going to take Ohio State with the points. Whole different conversation though in the next round against Oregon.
Yeah. I think I'm also going to be on Ohio State. I know Corey picked Tennessee. Yeah, I think. What was that?
He's only a stud in NFL.
Yeah.
He still has to prove himself.
Yeah, I think I would echo a lot of the stuff that Mag said. I think Tennessee is the number one, like, ooh, thank God no one's talking about our schedule. Like they really didn't have that impressive of I mean they had the one big win against Bama, right? That was pretty much the thing that they hung their hat on.
Yeah, their signature.
Right. So yeah, I think Ohio State, I think that there is potential for them to come out flat, and Tennessee is a team that is good enough to take advantage of that if Ohio State comes out really bad. But I think Ohio State doesn't really come out bad in big games. I know that for, as bad as Ryan Day is against Michigan, he's pretty damn good against everybody else. And the teams that he does lose to we're talking about the 4-team playoff games, right? And
Yep.
Tennessee, I think, is a tier below that. I like Ohio State to win this game, and I don't really want to pick the second round games, but
yeah,
I kind of think Ohio State is sneaky live against Oregon straight.
Oh yeah, 100%. Could be a good game.
I don't know.
I feel like I might be letting momentum factor in too much to it right now, but I just feel like they're kind of a beaten down team.
Yeah, I think if they beat Tennessee, that's the thing is if they play Oregon, it means they will have beaten Tennessee, and I think they're kind of back on their feet.
Yeah,
but
we'll know after the first quarter, basically, with the Ohio
State. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, the team that quadrant could match up, or the teams plural that those teams could match up against in the semis, the 4-5-12 quadrant here, Clemson at Texas. Winner plays Arizona State at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. That would be the Peach Bowl. Yeah, I think Arizona State is more real than people think. I think I'm still going to take. I might bet on Clemson to cover this number because I think it's like 12 or 11.5, something like that.
Half against Texas, yeah.
It's a lot of points. I feel like Texas is not really like a run it up team as much as I thought they were going to be at the beginning of this season. So I would maybe take Clemson with the points, but I think Texas wins both of these games pretty handily. I think they really need to. I think if Texas does not make it to the semifinals with this draw, considering that they also didn't really do a ton in the regular season, and I mean, Ewers was a guy preseason, everybody was saying probably a top 10 pick in the draft, right? I
Yeah.
just, it feels like Texas would be going backwards. Like, oh, is
Yeah.
Texas back? Maybe they're the class of the fucking SEC in their first year there. I think to kind of let have all that wash over and have them to actually be like 75% of what everyone thought they were, be a big step back.
Yeah. I think this is another team, Texas at least. Clemson started out slow, got hot, stayed hot throughout the year, but again, kind of weaker opponents. But I feel like Texas is another one that's kind of burning out at the wrong time. We'll get to talk about Penn State, but I think we're like on the uptick, and a couple of these teams that everybody thought knew that we're going to be in the playoff and knew they were going to make a deep run are kind of on the downturn. And then they totally deserve to lose that championship game, and they had a backup quarterback in for Georgia for a significant amount of time. In like he came back, right? They were down when he was in, or they definitely were down at some point while he was in. So they're gonna have to go up against Klubnik, who's playing really well, Clemson team that's playing really great, and like you said, 11.5 points. I just don't see them covering that in this kind of matchup. So I like Clemson to cover that, and then going on Clemson, Arizona State. If Clemson were to win outright, would be an interesting game. Um, I'm almost tempted to pick Clemson outright, but my friend down here likes them, so I can't have that happen. And I think Texas would probably get to that spot and skirt past them, past Arizona State. So Clemson to cover, and then obviously we have to do the lines next or the spread for that next one. But Peach Bowl.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Clemson plus 11.5 as well. I really like Dabo Sweeney in this underdog spot. I feel like he's got this team playing like really well right now, and I think that there's like a lot of question marks about Quinn Ewers here. I feel like this is another game where Texas almost is like, do we want to play this on the road rather than at home? If Quinn Ewers comes out flat and people start chanting for Arch Manning, like, is that what you really want in your team? So I think I like Clemson 11.5 in this one. I think I like them. I mean, I think they're the best underdog chance to win this weekend, in my eyes, at least.
Is it kind of a backup boost though, like Alabama with Tua and Hurts situation?
Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I feel like jumping in a playoff game like that is a really big ask. So I
Tua
don't
won
know.
a natty at halftime.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all over Clemson plus 11.5. I like them so much. I'm a little scared that I'm missing something here.
They're gonna get dominated. All right, let's rip the band-aid off. The 3-6-11 here. SMU at Penn State in Happy Valley, regrettably in the middle of the afternoon. And
Yeah.
the winner is going to play Boise State at State Farm Stadium in Arizona. That would be the Fiesta Bowl. I'll start and I'll let you guys talk. I'll go quick here. I do not to fuck with you guys with the narrative, but I do think Penn State's under a lot of pressure to make it to the semi because James Franklin, the narrative is always right. He can't win the big game, and these are like quote unquote big games, but definitely games that if it was in like week 8, you'd expect to win it, right? So I think that SMU is, like I said, I think they're probably the worst team in the playoff. I think I'm going to take Penn State with the points in that one for sure. And then Boise, it's a very interesting game, considering Genty's on the other side of the ball. You like to think that you just sell out for the run, but I mean, you just never know. I mean, they are very much aware that their very best player is the running back and that they need the passing game to get a little creative. I'd be scared just for the fact that you're going to get every trick play that Boise State has. But yeah, I still think Penn State entire roster, like, they should still make the semis. But yeah, I'd bet on them this upcoming round.
I appreciate the pick. I To be fair, the SMU scares me because I just haven't watched a second of them. I don't really know anything about them outside of just hearing how it went this season.
Kick the shit out of Pitt, so that should scare you.
Yeah, that does scare me. I mean, we talked about it in our group chat and everything. It's just I feel like this last week, even though we lost and people call it loser talk or whatever, but I feel like we unlocked a new level of our offense. We're not, at least this season and the last 2 years, I guess we're not necessarily a shootout team because we're not used to our defense giving up a ton of points, and we're not used to having to score a ton of points. And I think with how bad it looked early in the game against Oregon, who I think is that they look like the best team in the country to me. Um, I think it showed like that we can actually score, kind of hang with these guys a little bit. Our run game wasn't as great as it has been, but what's cool about that is we know that it is there. If we can get it going, then our pass game was pretty good. And honest, I don't think Drew's numbers looked incredible. At least in the first half, they weren't great, but he kind of had another gear. That touchdown pass at the end of the game, while he's getting sandwiched between two D linemen or whatever, was incredible. I think that we have the ability to cover 8.5 here. And then I do like us against Boise, like you said. I think we are going to sell out against the run. It was clear against Oregon that with elite level receivers, we just can't hang with them at all. That was a Tez guy just murdered us. Tez Walker just murdered us the whole game. It felt like there wasn't anybody within 15 yards of him the whole time. And I'm absolutely not going to complain about like just abhorrent officiating with Holds and Abdul Carter the whole time. I'm not going to go to war about his Big Ten bully eye black that he's catching a lot of shit for, despite the fact that he was just absolutely denied the opportunity to play a clean game. He was at Dylan Gabriel 5 times with just egregious holds right in front of him. But again, don't blame the refs. One score game that definitely couldn't have changed very much if a couple of those went our way. That ended up in touchdowns. But yeah, I like us to get past SMU minus 8.5, and I think we just got to beat the teams. I don't want to steal Mag's thunder with the quote he had in the group chat about Franklin and winning big games, but
be my opening line, Eric.
Go ahead.
James Franklin's whole shtick. What do we make fun of James Franklin for every year? He wins the games he's supposed to. He doesn't win the ones he's not supposed to. Penn State is the more talented team in this game, and if they win, they would be the more talented team in the next round. I feel like it's not going to be a cakewalk. These are playoff teams, but Penn State wins these games, and James Franklin loves to cover. We saw it at the end against Maryland when he was throwing for a touchdown. Like, I feel like this is a I don't want to say layup. I don't want to jinx it, but I feel very confident going into this game.
He did certainly say it, didn't
I do.
I think that James Franklin wins these types of games. I think that he's prepared for it. I think he's the narrative all year that he's been echoing after that Ohio State loss specifically was that our season isn't over. I think he's kind of viewing this as his second lease on life. He's kind of, viewing this as a way to change his narrative, and this is the way to do it. So Penn State minus 8.5. I think it should be manageable.
Yeah, I also think they fucked up. This is completely unrelated, but I think they fucked up. They should have switched Clemson and SMU just because Clemson and Texas, those oranges should not play each other. SMU and Penn State's blues should not play each other.
SMU Penn Texas State, in-state rivalry too.
Yeah, Penn State and Boise's blues are not going to look good. Indiana, if they win playing Georgia, those Reds are not going to look good together. This is going to be a fucking eyesore city.
Good thing for us because we have the traditional blue and whites with the navy blue. I think even though SMU has some cool uniforms, I think that our blues against their blues kind of make them look a little candy ass.
Yeah, because it is a little lighter blue. I do agree. You got to go dark.
It's kind of the death penalty here.
It is.
Yeah.
Losing team should have to be banned for life. from the playoffs.
I am getting ahead of myself for sure, but the Oregon game made me think that Penn State could win the whole thing.
Oh my god!
After watching some of the other games,
But
Georgia's clearly down. I think they're good. They played a Big Ten game this past weekend. We talked about it in our group chat. They played a Big
They
Ten
should
game.
be
It
the
was
Big
low
Ten
scoring.
champs. They should be the Big Ten champs. You
They
guys
should.
should be the Big 12 champs.
Well, do you think Oregon is the best? Do you guys think Oregon's the best team in college football?
I would say yes. After that game, I would say yes.
And
I'm still
we
unsure.
have, yeah. Well, if we got to the point where we're playing any team, if we win these first two games, we do have to pretty much play mistake-free football, which we don't typically do. But for us to play Oregon that tight makes me think that we have the ability to do it if we play perfect football.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we say something too crazy, let's move on. The 2-7-10, Indiana at Notre Dame in South Bend. Winner is going to play Georgia at the Superdome. That would be the Sugar Bowl. I think I like Indiana to cover. This is definitely the fraud bowl if there is one in this first round. I think this is two teams that, based on their record, you can't really deny them, but I don't know if either team really has, like, what's the best win either of these two teams has? Is it like Notre Dame killing Army? Like,
I think
is that really?
Well, I guess what, at A&M?
Oh, right, I forgot
Right?
that even
Yeah.
fucking happened.
But after
With
that, I
Wakeman,
mean,
though, like,
after that, it might be Michigan, the Indiana-Michigan win.
right. There's some really gross stuff there. I know, Mags, you're saying you're a little high on Notre Dame. I kind of like the idea of Indiana covering and Notre Dame winning outright. And then I know Georgia has the backup. The other thing to think about is they had the season they had with Carson Beck, who fucking blows. So I think even if it's, a high recruit coming in, just because he's a backup doesn't mean that he's worse than Carson Beck. So I still think Georgia's live to do a whole bunch of things in the playoffs. So I think Georgia's going to beat whoever comes their way. But I think as far as first round, I'll say Indiana covers, Notre Dame wins.
What's that number in the game? What do you have it at?
7.5, I think.
7.5. Yeah. Yeah, that looks right.
Yep.
You got it, Max.
Yeah. I'm high on Notre Dame, but yeah, I'm going to stick with my Notre Dame. I don't know what the confidence level is in either one of these teams, because the only big games that I have to go off for either one of these teams are a week 1 game against Texas A&M and a shellacking against Ohio State for Indiana. So I don't really know which team is going to show out in this one. So I'm just going to I believe Notre Dame has a better talent on the field. I think Notre Dame has a slight edge in terms of coaching. I think Marcus Freeman's an underrated coach. Games in Notre Dame in South Bend too. So I'm going to take Notre Dame minus 7.5. They're a team that, Lewis, you were just saying that Texas isn't a team that runs up the score. I feel like Notre Dame is a team like that. We saw it against USC this past weekend. Like, they're liable to get a late pick 6 or return a punt or just some bullshit to backdoor cover this. So I'm going to take Notre Dame minus 7.5 in this one.
Especially because Signetti's a guy that you kind of want to stick his face in it.
Yes, that. And then I agree as well. Georgia, I think, is handling either one of these teams. I think Georgia, I wouldn't be surprised if Kirby Smart secretly told his team, yo, make it a close one. So we have some sort of narrative going. I think Georgia has a chance to be playing for a national championship this year.
Yeah, I mean, they're never out of the fight if they're in there, especially with that bye. I think as much as Signetti is, you do want to rub his face in it, I feel like that's just going to happen to him at Indiana. At the point with NIL now and in the Big Ten, those middle tier teams can definitely get better, and there's definitely years where they can show some flashes, but I think it's going to kind of just, work itself out eventually. He's going to have some real stinker seasons, which I think why he might kind of use it as kind of like a stepping stone to a larger job. I don't know if that's what's going to happen or not, but I just also can't bring myself to bet on Notre Dame. I'd much rather see the Big Ten put up a fight here, especially with all these people complaining that we're even, contending. So I think I'm going to go with Indiana plus 7.5. I was looking back through Notre Dame's schedule, and they did beat the shit out of a ton of teams. But again, it was Navy and Army, and Indiana beat a team that beat Ohio State that might be the most talented team in the country. So um, I like Indiana to cover here. I would be pumped to go on Twitter and start arguing with people if somehow they win outright. But I think, like you guys are saying, they go on and lose at the next stage anyway and send Georgia on their way.
Yeah. One parting shot here. You mentioned with Signetti, like what is the ceiling at Indiana? I think a good comp is probably the like us in like late middle school and then kind of through high school Wisconsin teams
Yep.
where it's just like they can play really sound games like X's and O's and like run the football, and schematically they're going to be pretty solid, but it's just the pipeline states that they're pulling from. You're just not going to compete with teams that are nationally recruiting in the Big Ten, like the top of the Big Ten does. And I agree. I think it's probably, I bet he makes this playoff. I bet in the next like 2 years he makes another playoff, maybe like one out of the 2 years, and then hops to one of the bigger teams in like the ACC or the Big 12 or something.
Yeah, I think people might also see Indiana as, like, players might see them also as a stepping stone. Like, you get your D1 scholarship at a place that you can probably play relatively quickly, and then they have attention right now to then just move on and play for Ohio State, like receivers, skill positions, and everything like that. So I do think that they're caught lightning in a bottle situation.
If I was in high school, I'd go play there, and then if Signetti leaves in the next year or two, I just follow him.
The JUCO of the Power Four.
Yeah, it really is. So I
last
think
chance IU.
So I do think I like Mag's idea for drafting bowl games to pick. So maybe next week. I think if we do it next week, there's only like 2 games that would have been played. So I like that idea. Everybody draft a couple games to pick against the spread. But we want to get into some NFL.
Yeah, real quick. Last point. Really quick. If Penn State wins these first 2 games, that means we will finish the season with 2 top 12 wins based on the AP poll, and 1 being in top 10, and then our 2 losses only coming, well, other than whoever we would, if we didn't win at all, who we would lose to in the playoffs would be top 5.
Whoever we lose to.
If we were to lose, is what I said.
But yeah, NFL. Last week, this was a historic week for us. 35, 14, and 3 as a unit. After the early slate, we had 6 losses between everybody, which is crazy. Still lost the dick pic somehow. It's just a cursed endeavor.
Yep.
We won 1 with 2 pushes.
Is it just time to back the opposite of whatever the dick pic is?
That was kind of our shtick from the beginning, was to fade them. Fade the dick pics, essentially.
That is true. Because who wants unsolicited dick pics? Yeah.
So from our OG fans, they would have known this.
Right. They've been making money hand over fist. This week's Mags, best week anybody has had all year. 11-2. I was 9-3-1. Corey 8-4-1. And Eric 7-5-1, which leaves the overall at Corey 59.0%. Just fucking keeps rolling. Mags 54.1%. I know. Mags 54.1%. Eric 53.4%. And I am at 52.7%.
Oh my god.
For everybody calculating at home, Eric, you are a game and a half behind Mags for second, and I am a game and a half behind you for third. So it is crunch time.
He had to go on a historic run. I was following that closely, and I was just getting pissed at there are a couple that you, me, and Corey were on, and then Mags was on something else, and it's like, oh, look, we're going to win this one. What the fuck does Mags have? And it's like the over. And it was also it's just fucking unbelievable. I don't know what I was thinking with the Jags Titans over, but anytime any over totals get underneath 40 and it's not the Steelers playing on one side of the ball, then I'll typically take that. But
It's comments like these that get you where you are right now.
no, because your defense is incredible.
Oh my god, here we go. I do think every week I've been like clawing to get off the bottom. I've been on last place since week 2, and every week I keep doing this where I just the first slate I'm like 6-2. I'm like, thank fucking god I finally had the week that like gets me back to even with everybody, and I'll text the group message. I'm like, yeah, 6-2 this week. And then it's like Eric will be like, "Yeah, I'm 7-1." I'm like, "What the fuck?" And then I have a bad late slate, and then I'm fucking. It's
I mean,
crazy.
we both had bad. I mean, all of us but Mags had a horrible late slate. I think you, me, and Corey were aligned on a ton of them.
Yeah, I think we were 1-2.
Yeah.
And also Mags is the new king of the dick picks. 8-5-1. He's over
Nice.
60%. Corey 7-5-2. Eric 8-6. I'm 7-7. Let's get into our Week 15 games. This is a great slate. I even had to leave off. I like Rams Niners as a game on Thursday night, but I left it off because there's some bangers here this week. Starting off, Dolphins +2.5 at the Texans. Over under is 46.5. This is probably the darling of the early slate on Sunday. A lot of the great games are in the late slate. Dolphins off the comeback win against the Jets. They're 6-7. They are pretty much in like gotta win every single game mode right now. Texans off a bye, which is kind of the only thing that scares me here. I really want to pick the Dolphins. They are giving not like team of destiny, but as far as bottom teams or teams that started in the bottom that are then trying to make the playoff. I do think the Dolphins like definitely fit that description. I do really think they keep it close, and the Texans have been a team that every time I believe in them, they just fucking take a big shit on my face. So I'm gonna bet the Dolphins. I know 2.5 is not a big margin for them to like still lose and cover, but I kind of like them to win. If it was at home, I'd feel really good. If the Texans weren't off a bye, I'd feel really good. But I'm still just gonna go with my gut. I think I like the Dolphins here. Maybe I'll take the over actually, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna take the Dolphins +2.5. Also, I just don't think the Texans are that great, and I think the Dolphins are exactly what they have been for the last 2 years. Just kind of like the Penn State of the NFL. They're gonna win the games that they're supposed to for the most part, and playoff games aren't our forte, and neither are playing teams that have great records. I mean, so the Texans. So one thing that doesn't align is that we're not great against teams with a winning record, and the Texans are 8-5. But I think kind of the opposite has happened. Is like they're at a spot where they were kind of expected to be. People might have thought they were going to be better. The Dolphins had 5 games without Tua, which I think they managed to win one of those or whatever. But that set us back a bunch, and I feel like people are kind of forgetting that happened. So yeah, I like them. Like you were saying, I don't like the off the bye situation, but I still think that we have the offensive firepower to play with a lot of teams that aren't Super Bowl bound. So
yeah, I don't have a feel for this game as much either way. I think that, like Lewis said, like the bye week really scares me for the Texans. And on the flip side, like the Dolphins are kind of playing here for their playoff lives. So I think I'm gonna go over. I think both of these teams realize the way they win is by putting up points, and I think that regardless of outcome, we're gonna see. I mean, Tyreek has been. I just a little behind the curtain here. I traded Tyreek Hill away, I believe 2 weeks ago in fantasy for Christian McCaffrey. Since that trade, he has put up, I believe it's 25 and 26 points. So Tyreek's probably going to go off again, and I'm starting the Dolphins defense in fantasy, so that probably is a good omen to fade me. So give me the over. What did you say it was, Lewis? 48?
46.5.
46.5, even lower. I like that. Both these teams are capable of putting up 30 points. So
something interesting fantasy wise is pulling it up right now, but Jonnu Smith is the 4th fantasy tight end this
Dude, all
year.
you got to do is catch like two touchdowns in a game, and you're tight end
Fantasy
7
tight
I
ends
mean,
out of
this
nowhere.
year are a bloodbath. It's Brock
Kittle's
Bowers.
been Kittle back
Yeah,
from the dead as far as scoring.
yeah.
Just-
I do, Eric. I will just say, if the Dolphins win this week to close the season out, they've got a really banged up Niners team at home, at the Browns, at the Jets. It's on the table. I'm not gonna say too much. It's on the table.
yeah, this is
Start
one
playing.
where I a couple weeks ago I was excited to play spoiler, and now I'm excited for the chance to creep into the playoffs, but I'm not so delusional to think that we would really do too much damage there. So I'm kind of in like the perfect spot as a fan of like,
Yeah,
let's ruin some seasons for everybody else. Let's somehow creep into the playoffs so that I just have that if I need to argue with somebody, but I don't really go to bat for them like I do Penn State. And I don't really care what what happens. It's just I'm playing with house money right now. So
yeah. All right, our second game. This is our first of 3 games in the late slate on Sunday. Bucks +3 at the Chargers, over under 46.5. Bucks sitting at 7-6, tied for the lead in the AFC South. They do not hold the tiebreaker against the Falcons. The Chargers won a game that the Chiefs definitely tried to lose on that last second field goal. The Bucks have been a team that I think everybody, it's maybe like the most heavily bet team on this podcast. I feel like I bet the Bucks a lot, and I still don't do it close to as much as Eric. But um, the Bucks early in the season, it felt like they were an automatic cover, and it just doesn't seem like it's been as easy recently. And I've been a Chargers guy a lot. Um, as gross as getting to 9-5 sounds for the Chargers, I kind of want to bet them, but the Chargers do feel like maybe the number one team of, you know, a -3 number. Like they'll win and lose, or they'll win the game and lose the cover. Like maybe more than anybody at that number. So I am having a really tough time with this one. This is another one I'm considering the over at 46.5. I think I might just have to do that. I think I might go with the over. Nah, I'll take a side. I'll take a side, but it'll be on a graphic. Tune in.
uh, I think what's been happening is they're just like the Bucks just aren't. They just haven't been scoring as many points as they were out of the gate. They were almost playing like a Big 12 matchup, like a Big 12 team back in the day, just scoring because their defense wasn't doing amazing, which is weird because you think of their defense as being fine. Um, but I think that's kind of what's been going on. That's why I was like looking at the number for the over. I almost want to go low because the Chargers have been playing really tight games. Like, I feel like if you wanted to predict a perfect score, the Chargers are probably scoring in any game that the Chargers are in. You pick them to score 17 points, and based on who they're playing is how you figure out the other side. Huh?
2017 on the table.
I think
Mr.
2017 could be on the
2017.
I
table.
don't think I've actually told the listeners about that. Go ahead. You finish your pick, Eric, and then I'll.
Well, we
You
could be
have
in
to bet if this game
solidarity
ends,
here
I think.
together because I do. I think that this one is. I've been betting against the Chargers and I've been betting for the Bucks. So the only thing that I would want to do if I was picking a side is kind of completely revert this and pick the Chargers to win this one. But I feel like that's the wrong pick, and I think I want to go with the under 46.5 in this one. I just can't picture.
Fuck, I kind of
I
like
don't
that.
picture a shootout in this game, and I like the Chargers defense and just pounding the ball. So
I think the last thing someone says to me is what I'm going to pick in this game.
I'm taking a side in this one. I'm going Bucks +3. So I just did a quick Googling on it because I was like, Bucks have been covering a lot. They're 4-1
Yeah,
against the spread over these last 5 weeks.
they are good, yeah.
And like I just think it's more fun to bet on Baker Mayfield and the Bucks than against them. Like I would
yeah,
rather almost like go down enjoying my bet than go down like being like, God damn it, why did I bet on like fucking Jim Harbaugh to run the ball down their throats for 60 minutes, right? So I am a little nervous about East Coast team going West Coast in this, and I feel like the Bucks, especially with Mike Evans just coming back from injury, like I feel like the Bucks are kind of a hot team right now, and I wouldn't want to play them. And they're sneaky one of the better teams in the NFC. Like, they're the only team to beat the Lions this year? So,
Yeah.
My pick being said, I think I would still pick Bucks money line potentially, but I just think it's going to be. I think 2017's in play, Mags. That's what I thought.
Yeah. So for the listeners, I don't know if we've discussed this before, but I was doing some research about two months ago now. The most common score in the NFL is 20-17. So most betting sites have a bet that you can do where you predict the exact correct score. And that number, if you pick the correct exact score, is like plus like 4,000 plus 5,000. So you bet $5, you're winning a lot of money. So every once in a while, if I just see a gross game like this where I'm like, like neither of these teams feel like they're going to put up a ton of points, or like primetime games are great for this, just put down a little 2017, just a little sprinkle on 2017, and it's fun to root for.
Mr. 2017.
Mr.
I'll throw
2017
that in this week. Yep.
All right. Next game. Bills plus 1.5 at the Lions. Over under 54.5. If the Bills did not lose to the fucking Rams last week, this would be Lions all fucking day, and they've muddied the water. I thought this was going to be close. I thought it was going to be more like 2.5. I'm just going to bet the Lions. I think that
the line is up to 2.5, by the way, Lewis.
Okay.
On FanDuel?
I'm seeing it on, yes, FanDuel.
So the Lions have not been covering at an extremely high rate recently. And I mean, a 12-win team, you got to think they maybe catch one more loss here, but it's at home. Oh, fuck. It's really just good for the Steelers if the Bills lose. And I kind of feel like the Steelers might lose this week as well. So I might just bet the Lions and hope for the best as a fan.
Yeah, I hate this. I think where I've run into trouble this year with some of my weeks are I feel really good about a team. I throw them in the dick pick, and then they blow it for us, and then I get mad at them and bet the opposite way the next week. But I also wouldn't feel. I don't know if I feel great about the Lions, and it's what everybody thinks is a preview of the Super Bowl. So that's kind of fun, and 54 is such a high number.
No, I was just eyeing that up. I was like, "Damn, do I?"
But I think, like Mags was talking about in the last game, I'd rather root for points. Even though this year, like, it feels like the overs, at least at the beginning of the season, I think I'm still scarred from that. It just felt like overs were so hard to get to. But both of these teams score a lot of points, kind of banged up defense for the Lions, and I think I'm gonna go over 54.5.
Yeah, I was really eyeing that 54.5, but I think I'm going to go with the Lions. I'm seeing it at 2.5. So if 1.5, if we can find,
I still see 1.5.
It was DraftKings. I had it wrong. DraftKings had it at 2.5. But I feel like Dan Campbell just really, really loves these big games, and I feel like
he will die to win one of these games.
Yeah, like he just loves to not only win these games, but like he wants to be in control as he wins the game. And like they're going to be driving down the field for a field goal or some shit. And like it's just, I don't know. I think the Bills are a very good team. I think that I'm a Bills hater. So I'm kind of skewed here a little bit. But I think that Josh Allen in these big games can put up really big garbage time numbers. But I mean, they have that Chiefs win, I guess, this year, so that kind of hurts the narrative. But either way, I think the Lions are just the better coach team. I think they're the more talented team. The Bills really only have the advantage at quarterback, which is a big advantage. But I'm going with the Lions in this one minus. I would bet that up to 3 probably.
What was the thing with James Cook this week? This past week, that
he was like didn't really get the ball that much.
Yeah,
load management situation.
Yeah.
There's no way they do that against the Lions, though, right?
No, it would be a perfect Bills season to beat the Chiefs. I think that was in Arrowhead, right? I think.
No, it was in Buffalo.
It was in Buffalo, okay. But still, to beat the Chiefs and beat the Lions, like the top seed in each conference, and to still like catch a loss in the AFC Championship game, that's just how every Bills game or Bills season deserves to go. So, all right, up next, Steelers plus 5.5 at the Eagles, over under 42.5. The Eagles are a fucking wagon, and I'm pretty terrified. I think the scariest thing is just that Pickens is out, and I thought that we were gonna have a much worse offensive performance without him. We kind of got set up with decent field position a couple times, and we had a couple just Browns being the Browns kind of plays that allowed us to kind of skip merrily down the field. I don't think that's going to happen against the Eagles. We're going to get tush pushed on. We're going to get Saquon. And I'm just going to say 5.5 is too much for a team that is as much as the Steelers feel like they are not as good as a 10-3 division leading by 2 games kind of team. They have played the football on the field. They've played the football. They have played the football. So 5.5 is a lot for a team that's played as good as them. The Eagles, they've kind of been asking to lose a game as well, but on the road is tough. But it's Tomlin on the road as a dog. Everybody knows what that fucking means. So I'm going to bet the Steelers plus 5.5. Impartial.
Yeah. I forget how it worked out. I think was it last week I was calling out kickers that were struggling, and I bet against the team with the kicker struggling. And I don't know if you could call Jake Elliott doesn't have as many problems as a couple other guys in the league, but he has had a few problems. He missed an extra point this week. He definitely missed a field goal.
I think he did miss some. He missed something easy this week.
And he missed a couple.
Boswell's the fucking man too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Kicker. I'm going kicker here. Boswell's clearly the better kicker. I agree with Lewis. 5.5's a lot for a team that's playing as well as the Steelers have been playing. I also always typically bet against the Eagles, and it burns me, but I feel like this is kind of a lightsaber battle here with me with betting for against the Steelers and then always betting against the Eagles. So I think I could go either way. It's level. Steelers plus 5.5. I like it because I don't like the total at all. For either side.
Don't you? Oh, don't you?
I don't like it for either side.
I think
hey, trouble in paradise in Philly right now.
I was about to say, what is going on with AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts right now? Are they're
not friends anymore? Apparently,
yeah. What does that mean?
I don't think that diva shit works for a quarterback that's kind of diva-ish. Like he doesn't do diva stuff, but he's a little cooler. Like I feel like it works against like
he's
a
very
Kirk
full of himself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that shit works for a quarterback like that. Like Kirk Cousins, you can have diva stuff because he's gonna go over to him on the sideline and be like, "What's your problem? How can I?
Yeah.
Can I make it? Like I'll throw you the ball next. I swear, next drive or whatever." But
you want a pinky
I don't
promise?
know. I don't think it's gonna work out.
So I really like 2 bets in this one, but I'm leaning 1 bet more, so I'm going to take that bet more. The one I like less is Steelers plus 5.5. I think, like you said, Mike Tomlin on the road, like all of that shit, 5.5 is a lot of points, so I like that one. But I think I really like the under in this, just because I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to throw the ball all that much on this Eagles secondary. So that tells me that at least one side isn't going to be putting up a ton of points. Like the Steelers winning or covering this game is Chris Boswell hitting like 5 field goals, right? And like, I mean, on the flip side, like the Eagles, we're probably going to see a lot of Saquon. We're going to see a lot of tush pushes. That means the clock's going to be running. Like, I just don't see a ton of points going up in this one. So I'm going to take the under in it. I feel like I'm losing every time I take the Steelers under because I think I'm overrating their defense a little bit sometimes in these games. But that under is more an Eagles secondary bet than a I don't think either team can score bet.
Yeah, we're not as great of a defense as the fact that we just sell out to force fumbles, and we have a lot of guys who are good at it, but it does not happen every play.
It's gonna be kind of cold. So, what time is this game? Is it after an evening game?
Sunday late slate.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be 45 is the high for Sunday, but obviously they're two Pennsylvania teams, so. But
Is Romo and Nance on this game, or are they on the Lions game?
Uh,
Because they both
I
be
don't know,
Fox,
Jim.
right? They're both in the
One of these
NFC.
is gonna be fucking Brady, which sucks.
No, I don't think they'd both be Fox games, wouldn't they?
No, they don't really do that anymore. AFC,
No.
NFC. I actually no. I think I saw the Steelers Eagles advertised as America's Game of the Week, so that would be Burkhardt and Brady.
That's fun.
Yeah. All right. Last game, Sunday Night Football. Packers minus 2.5 at the Seahawks. Over under 46.5. Seahawks shut my ass right up last week. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna bet the fucking Packers this week. I don't believe in the Seahawks, and I chase this feeling. This is why I'm such a fucking degenerate. Is that I just don't believe in the Seahawks, and I'm gonna bet against them until I'm right about it. And then once I'm right one time, I will reassess. After I go 1-4 betting against the Seahawks, I will then reassess. So yeah, the Packers are a team that I've felt gross betting on. If it feels like against great teams, the number's never big enough, and against bad teams, the number's always too big. And I've just really hated betting on the Packers this year. But at a certain point, like, I mean, they just played the Lions to within a field goal. They've kicked the crap out of the Dolphins, who are a good team. So yeah, I'm just cold's not really going to affect them either in Seattle. So yeah, I'll bet the Packers minus 2.5. They're going to win this game by 3 points.
yeah, I feel like it's kind of a crazy spread set because they're playing at home this week and they get the same amount of points that they got away against the Cardinals last week. I know that it's different because Cardinals aren't as good or whatever, but I feel like it's a much better Packers team. Obviously, they have to go to Seattle, but just watching them absolutely bend the Dolphins over on Thanksgiving, I think that I'm going to go with the Packers minus 2.5 as well. I think that I need to play it smart because I was hot and I was on the Seahawks last week, and I think this is the week for me to jump off the train. So I like the Packers minus 2.5.
I think I'm going against you here. I'm going to take Seahawks plus 2.5 just because I feel like I've been getting kind of burned by betting against. I feel like the Seahawks have been home dogs like 3 or 4 times this year, and I feel like this is based on
Just keep
nothing but
winning.
vibes. I feel like they've covered that every time. So I'm going to take them 2.5. I don't know. I just feel like they got the juice coming out Sunday night. 12's there. Fucking who knows? Richard Sherman or some shit will be there. Maybe Jeff Bezos will show up. So give me Seahawks plus 2.5 purely on vibes. There's every other like the Packers should win this game for every other reason. They should cover every other reason, but just this is a vibe pick right here.
It was a Zach Charbonnet game last week, though. I was like,
True.
Yeah.
see if he pops off again like that.
This is everybody picking him up in fantasy now. He's gonna lay a fucking egg this week probably.
Yeah.
Also, one last thing you mentioned, vibes, and my stupid fucking strategy that I mentioned last week that didn't work at all. Seahawks being 9-5 is way grosser than the Packers being 10-4. So that's a thing I'm basing this off as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it. Follow the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can find it in all those places. Help us get the shadow ban lifted on YouTube. We're going to war against YouTube.
Lewis, can I interject one thing real quick?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, and we can clip this. I want to just take a minute to talk baseball real quick. If you'll indulge me for 1 minute.
Sure.
I want to just formally congratulate the New York Mets on their 2025 World Series championship. You guys run New York. You guys run the NL. The NL East crown weighs heavy on your head. I'm so proud of you guys for all that you have done this year in this off season. Clay Holmes, I can't believe he's a 20-game winner this year. Johnny Loizaga, I can't believe he's the first ever 25-game winner in modern baseball history.
Wait, he's going to be a starter this year, Loizaga?
I think they signed him as a starter.
What the fuck? I saw Clay Holmes. I did not see. Dude.
Frankie Mon, that starting rotation of Frankie
They had that
Montas.
washed up group of fucking scrub ass fucking starters that all had career years. They think they could just fucking throw anybody out there. Who hits behind Soto? It's fat fucking Mark Vientos, dude. They fucking are not good. I can't believe I'm going to pull for the Braves over the fucking
as
Mets
a podcast. We all just want to formally congratulate the Mets now on their World Series championship.
Absolutely.
I cannot wait until I can actually engage in baseball talk. But once we get Rizzo, maybe.
You have the best pitcher in baseball. Get hype about it.
Yeah,
that's true. But the thing is, I was waiting to talk my shit until our matchups against, I guess, you guys, but it just didn't really bode well for me. So
Paul Skeens struck out Aaron Judge. I mean, that you can hang that.
That is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, that was talking baseball.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it would have been a major error on my part to not bring up the richest deal in sports history. So, but yeah, X.com. You can go get yelled at by Eric on X if you want to follow us at Picks and Parlays. Also Instagram at Picks and Parlays. You could see all the picks for the week on there, and X.com as well. Everything, everywhere, all at X.com. And you can follow the TikTok. TikTok might be getting banned in the US. I don't know. Might need a new home for shorts. I feel like every like 4 months.
That's a thing again.
Yeah, like every 4 months, people are like, "All right, Congress is banning TikTok. Everybody get fucking ready for it." And that's been happening for like 5 years. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's gonna do it. Oh, you have something, Eric?
I was just gonna say, if you're a fan, I would like you to keep listening, but I don't feel an ounce bad for you if you bought Hawk Tua's Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or whatever the fuck it was. So I stand by it.
That tweet.
There's a reason why I'm at my parents' place now. They foreclosed. I lost all of it in Hawk Tua coin.
Mags needs you now more than ever. Everyone, please. We're not asking for much. We're just a 10-cent donation could help keep Wikipedia, this podcast alive. So, but yeah, that was I feel like the anger in that tweet read as you were somebody that got hosed by Tua coin, and I was like,
no. What's funny is I have like real knee jerk reactions, and I feel something immediately about stuff. I think I read that it happened and immediately just said, because I was like reading the comments of people being like, "This is fucked up, this house," like all this stuff, and I was like, how in the world would you have ever thought? Yeah, why would you ever?
To the moon.
She
said we were going to the moon.
Yeah,
we're so fucked.
All right,
stop giving people like that a platform. Anyway,
yeah. All right, well,
plus a platform.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.